But we are happy you are here, so welcome.
It was better than the other time, which was during the Final Fantasy concert where no one would be here.
Yeah. Well, originally we were scheduled during the Final Fantasy concert, so
Yeah.
I guess this is preferable.
Let's murder you.
Anyways. Hey guys, welcome to So You Want to Enter a Cosplay Contest. It's an educational panel by us folks here at Southern Cospitality Cosplay. To give a quick roll call, I am D. Maru.
I'm David Screen.
And I'm Baby Blue Friday.
And we are 3/4 of Southern Hospitality. The other quarter, Amy Valentine, actually works for this convention for the cosplay staff as the show MC. So if you're going to be in the show, you're going to meet her as well.
She's also in a few of our pictures there.
You can see her a few ways. Anyways,
Rose was on stage at Sandy Band a couple of years ago.
3 of these were on stage. 4 of the
No,
things
the
were on
one
stage.
specifically of Mimi.
Oh yeah. In the red and blue outfit.
Oh, wow, Langela died when I wasn't paying attention. Excuse me.
Maybe you should pay more attention to your service. Or maybe you should pay more attention to the panel and not play Fate Grand Order during the panel.
Let me live my life.
They'll publicly shame you. Anyways. We're going to start from the beginning.
Because that's a good place to start.
So this is basically before you begin, before you consider entering a contest kind of thing. Always look up the rules of any contest for the specific convention you're attending before planning any entry. Rules are not universal between cosplay contests. There is no written code of law about how cosplay contests are meant to be conducted. Conventions can have rules that vary very widely between shows, even within the same region.
Yes.
So anytime you're entering a cosplay contest, read the rules first before you even start to plan what you want to enter.
We say this as people who used to run contests. Please read the rules. Please don't get yourself disqualified.
And if you have any questions, ask them before you start working on something or before you plan a skit. Because in this instance, it is way better to ask for permission
Yes.
than for forgiveness.
You need to be
Yes.
familiar with rules about content, what sort of maturity of content is allowed, what you're allowed to do on stage, because some conventions have rules about what sort of stunts can be pulled on stage, whether or not you can use effects like even just something as simple as throwing streamers on stage, maybe unkosher. You need to read, and if it's not in the rules and you're not sure about it, you need to ask. Another thing to keep in mind is that contests are really huge time sinks. They can take up most of the day or even the whole weekend in terms of prejudging rehearsals and the show itself. This is another thing that varies from contest to contest, but for ones that take themselves a little more seriously, there are a bit more of a time investment. You need to get prejudged, you need to check in, there's rehearsals for the show.
That is if the show has prejudging.
Yes. Most shows now do. Or do now, rather.
To explain what prejudging is for people who aren't familiar with it, prejudging is basically a chance for the judges to see your costume up close and in person so they can examine it in more detail, because just going from on stage usually doesn't give them a full idea of what everything that went into a costume, and it gives them a better appreciation for your work.
You can see things that don't transfer well on stage. Like,
And you get to talk about it.
yeah, you can talk about what you made and how good you are at it. And how excited you are. And don't tell them about the bad things like the iron burn you left on your collar.
And
Don't be mean.
the last major point is just a personality point. Having a positive attitude is the most important thing. If you're prone to negativity or letting competitiveness get the better of you, if you know you're that kind of person, cosplay contests are not for you.
Yeah. That's not a bad thing. It just,
It's not necessarily a bad thing to be competitive in sports or other hobbies, I guess, but cosplay contests, negativity and being overly competitive are considered very unkosher.
Poor sportsmanship can disqualify you.
yes.
So,
And also, if you're just prone to negativity, you won't enjoy yourself during the
Yeah.
contest. And the biggest thing is like if you're not having fun doing this, you definitely shouldn't be.
Yeah, if it's not.
Because nobody has to enter a cosplay contest.
No.
There are actually a lot of big name cosplayers out there who don't compete at all.
That's okay.
And that's fine. This is just something we personally love to do.
Mhm.
So. And you might find you enjoy it too. And this is another pre-convention thing. If a contest has competition levels, for example, novice, journeyman, master, make sure which one you qualify under.
And if you don't know for sure, feel free to ask. Again, as directors, we usually get a lot of questions, and when we got a lot of questions, fine. We got a lot of the same questions, which is why we made an FAQ eventually.
I prefer people ask than assume.
Exactly.
At pretty much every convention, cosplay chairman or directors or anything like that, or coordinator or whatever to get
Yeah,
involved.
please ask. And if you're not sure, just go for whatever. Because actually, when I won best master craftsmanship when I entered a journeyman. Whoops.
To explain those craftsmanship levels a bit, we get the terms from something known as the International Costume Guild Guidelines, which I know how I said before there's no writ of law about how cosplay contests are meant to be conducted, but actually quite a while ago, some people in the ICG, the International Costumers Guild, got together and decided, well, maybe we should put a set of at least suggestions about how cosplay contests should be run. And a surprisingly large number of conventions adapted those guidelines, at least to a degree. No one, I think, outside of actual ICG run shows used the complete guidelines, but something as simple as just having craftsmanship divisions to make the competition more fair.
Because no one wants to be, I don't want to compete against novices in the same level. That's not fair to you, to novices.
Novices don't want to compete against masters.
That's intimidating and scary.
They don't want to show up in their, their homemade.
First costume
I don't mean
ever.
to call you out, brother, but their homemade Naruto costume, showing up and someone's out there in a fully beaded Rose of Versailles stage outfit. Like, you're gonna look at that and be like, well, I might as well go home.
Yeah, we don't want to do that, and that's just not fair to everyone involved. And so that's why these exist.
And it's a lot of it's just being honest with yourself and your skill level, your experience, and your expectations for yourself.
Yeah.
If you're good enough to be in another division, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to undersell yourself a bit. If they think you're underselling yourself a bit to get into an easier competition, that's a problem.
That's
you
called
should not
sandbagging.
You should not be entering a cosplay contest because you're a bad person.
If you're just not sure, then you can always enter a lower division, and it's up to the directors and the judges to, they can, at their discretion, they can bump someone to divisions. I've done that before as a judge.
And the truth of the matter is a lot of this comes down to confidence.
Yeah.
You could be the best seamstress,
Sewist.
sewist.
We don't say sewer because it looks like sewer.
The best, you can be basically the best cosplayer in the world, and you can just not think very highly of yourself and think, maybe I should just stay in journeyman. I've never won any awards. I guess I'm pretty good. It's not fair for me to compete against novices, but I don't think I belong in the masters division. You'll be surprised sometimes. A lot of it really does come down to confidence. Gather up as much reference material on your costumes as you can. Make a whole diary of it. As many shots of the costumes as you can. Official materials only, please.
Unless you're working specifically from a
Fan art design.
Yeah.
Or something that has very little in the way of official art.
And if someone's done a fan-made costume breakdown, that's usually okay.
Yeah.
So long as it doesn't contradict anything or contradicts what you are making. But judges love to see reference material because judges are not familiar with every Tom, Dick, and Harry series out there. And they will not probably, odds are on, unless you're cosplaying from something really well-known and recognizable, they're probably not going to know what you're from. And if they do know what you're from, they'll let you know because they'll be excited about it. But, sometimes you just walk up to them and they'll be like, what is this from? And they won't know. So you have to show them what you're from so they can get an idea of what, criteria they're actually judging you by.
Yeah, having reference images helps the judges so much because we can look at the reference image and then look at your costume and go, hey, I can see what you're doing here. And I know, because, we don't know everything. We never will know everything.
Going hand in hand with that is the in-progress work photos. Make sure to take plenty of pictures as you're working on your costume. Judges love these as well because there's, you can talk all day about your process, but images do speak louder than words about how something is put together. And they give judges a much clearer idea of how your construction process works, how your construction theory works, where you're coming from on the project. And all these go in something usually called the work diary.
So, if you have a smartphone, you can get a wonderful app called Cosplanner
get it.
It is actually the first app I downloaded on my phone because I do a lot of competitions, and it allows you to pick your costumes and put them in,
Yeah, be sure to.
put elements in there and stuff like that. And you can even put, there's sections for reference images, what you need to buy, tasks you need to do.
So like you enter into the costumes like this, and they'll have a percentage of completion.
Yeah.
You determine what qualifies as percentage of completion, and we select an individual costume. Let's select one that's already finished. It's going to be his competition costume today, and you'll see
Everything's 100%.
all the tasks
Yeah.
all listed out. And it'll even say, how much time you spent on each task,
Yeah.
what percentage of completion of the costume that task is. It's an excellent way to keep yourself on track, and you can save your reference images there.
Yeah, there's a tab for reference images, process pictures.
It's absolutely probably one of the most
yeah.
helpful things for competitive cosplayers I've ever seen.
And especially people who have like ADHD like I do. So when they just go there and they're like, yeah, this is nice.
But yeah, you want to put all this together in a work diary. Describe in detail, write out what you've done, because you may not get a chance to say everything during prejudging, because usually prejudging is timed.
It's
You can usually go into a little more detail in your work diary, and trust me, most judges will read them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the
Judges
were
are so excited about work diaries.
Yes, I
But
was
then-
Like the big fallacy is that they don't read them, so
Oh,
why bother?
no, my God, they do.
my friend. They
The judges were very excited to get my reference diary
The
yesterday.
caveat to this is you probably won't get it back.
Yeah, don't just like print out. If you can print it out, don't print it out.
Don't use nice stationery.
Yeah, don't do anything super
Because
fancy.
it will probably end up in the trash by the end of the weekend. But
That's just life.
that's just how it goes. And part of the most important thing is to finish your freaking costume before the show, because the 4 a.m. cry fest in your hotel room as you're putting in the last stitches, the day before the show.
Don't be me.
Hours before the show.
Yeah, fun fact, I won Best Master Craftsmanship here in 2014 with a costume, with a wig I cut 2 hours before I had to be on stage. And I was finishing the costume in my hotel room all night on Friday.
Yes, yes, you were.
My bed was full of feathers and needles.
It's just psychologically speaking,
Yeah, you'll be
it's
in a better
completely
place.
defeating to do this. Love yourself, man.
Yeah, you'll be in a way better place if you finish at least before the con.
Yeah, don't live like that. Don't do that. All right. Signing up for the contest, and yes, you'd think this would be simple. It is usually not. Not to say that's a bad thing. It's just people really underestimate how involved the process is.
Or can be.
Yeah,
Or can
Depends on the
be.
con.
Yeah.
Some conventions do online signups. Some do not. Make sure you know the date it opens and have an idea of how quickly entry slots fill up. If they do not have online signups, instead do them on site at the convention. Make sure you know where the signup is located and what forms of material you need to bring. For the record, if a convention does online signups, they're still going to expect you to check in at a specific area,
Yes.
so they know that you're still interested in being in the show. Otherwise, they're not going to count you in the show. Don't show up at rehearsal being like, "Hi, I signed up online," and they'll just look at you and tell you to leave.
Yeah.
I have had to do this to people before.
And
It's unfortunate.
And we had in big letters that said you need to check in this place.
In order for the cosplay staff to plan their show, to put it together, they need to make absolutely certain the exact number of contestants and who each of them are going to be in the show. So if you did not check in, you're not going to be in the show.
Mhm.
You can't just show up to any cosplay contest and enter it on, just on hand, sight unseen. It's not going to work that way. And part of that is always ask questions. We said this earlier, but cosplay directors, coordinators, whatever, they love getting the questions and they don't like you to make assumptions. So, they would much rather you ask and get a definite answer than you to assume something incorrect and they have to correct you later.
Mm-hmm.
Say you assumed you could do something on stage that you couldn't, and then suddenly you're disqualified. You're
Mhm.
wondering why you were disqualified. And by the way, you will never be told directly you were disqualified unless you specifically go up and ask. But
Then
sometimes
they
you'll
will
just
tell you.
know. Usually because the director is giving you a wide-eyed look of why did you do that on my stage.
Like the person who fired a cap gun on stage.
San Japan won a Death Note group. The Mellow had a cap gun in her hand, fired it off on stage.
We thought the security director was going to tackle her.
I would let him.
Oh my
I
god.
was just as upset.
Like, I think everyone at the judges table, like, stood up when that happened.
Just never make assumptions about what is allowed. Always
You don't
ask.
want to be a story that directors tell later.
If the contest allows for custom walk-on music, have it cut, ready, and in a common format, either WAV or MP3. Anything outside of that is not likely to be readable by any computer. Don't use a prioritized audio format. That includes any kind of, oh, you guys can leave the door open.
It's
You
something.
can leave it open. Okay. Yeah, it's just people can walk in whenever they want. What was I saying? Oh yeah, prioritized audio
Yeah,
formats such as
proprietary.
proprietary
That's the word you're looking for.
audio formats like those used by iTunes usually won't fly because only iTunes can play it. So always make sure it's in a readable format, and there are ways to find out how to change an audio format if you're not sure how to do it.
There are online converters you can use.
We are going to go into how you compare audio for a cosplay show later. And also some cons request references images on sign up. So not just part of your work diary, but also on sign up as well. And you should have them ready. You should have extra copies of them ready because you want some for your work diary and you want some for the sign up. But usually if it's online signups, they just want an image pasted into your sign up email. That's how San Japan does it. That's how most contests that do online signups do it.
There's an attachment you can.
Very easy, convenient. Usually they're only just looking for one reference image. It's just so the cosplay coordinators know you by sight, who you are, either when you're signing up or when you're showing up for rehearsal, so they know, oh, that's this entry. It's a lot easier than going up to you and asking your name. They're still going to go up to you and ask you your name. It's just easier. Interacting with judges, because we know they can be intimidating for people. At most conventions, your first interaction with the judge will be at pre-judging. How much time this is varies from con to con. It can be anywhere from 5 minutes to a relatively unlimited amount of time like San Japan does, bless their hearts, because that's a lot to expect of the judges.
Depends on what section of prejudging you're going to. Like for here, if you go to prejudging on Friday, you've probably got unlimited time.
Yeah, I was the only person. I walked in at like 3:10 yesterday, and there was no one else in there but me and the judges.
But if you have a Saturday time slot, it's going to be a lot more crowded.
Yeah.
You're usually-
Especially the second one.
Yeah.
This is why a lot of conventions specifically say, oh, you have 5 minutes for pre-judging, etc. Novices will usually take less time. Master Division will just take more time, because usually it just takes Masters a lot more time to explain what all they did with their costumes.
And groups take more time as well.
Absolutely. And you will be nervous. Most of the time, so are the judges. Despite how confident they may look, some of these judges may not judge very often. Cosplay judging is something that people can cycle through quite often, unless there's some conventions that have tenured judges, which are becoming more of a rare thing in today's con environment, because usually cosplay judging is handled by whoever the cosplay guests are. That's how it's done at this con, it's how it's done at a few Texas cons. And usually they don't judge very often. Or if they do, you can judge 100 times and still be nervous about it, just because you're meeting people who are strangers and they expect you to know what they've done. And you're like, oh my gosh, I've been sewing for 10 years, but suddenly I'm going to forget what kind of seam this is, and I'm going to sound like an idiot. They're going to think I'm not worthy of judging them.
Or what snaps are.
The clicky buttons.
Oh my god.
I promise you, judges are just as intimidated by the process there because their credibility is at stake.
Mhm.
So I promise you, they are nervous too. So it's okay.
This is also why reference diaries are a really good idea. So all your progress is all written out, so if you forget something during judging, they can just look at the paper and go, oh hey, they forgot to say this. Like I forgot to mention my embroidery during my hall cosplay judging. It's in my reference diary.
And you will forget things. Everybody does.
Everyone will
No matter
forget
how
things.
many years you've been doing this, you're going to forget to mention something. That's just how it happens.
Oh man, I forgot to mention this was a really weird fabric. It wasn't supposed to be used like this.
As far as presenting your costume, highlight your triumphs. Basically, whatever you're most proud of in the costume, you start there. You want to get them with a wow right off the bat. Don't mention the flaws unless the judge explicitly brings it up. And they will be looking at you, and if they do bring up something, don't panic. They have not said you're a bad costumer or that you should feel bad for making a mistake. It's just like a resume and a job interview. You don't mention the bad parts unless they're explicitly brought up, and then you find a way to spin it into a good thing, but don't lie. I promise you, the worst possible thing you can do in cosplay judging is lie about your costume.
Please do not lie to judges. We know. I have stories. You will become a story if you lie blatantly to judges.
And they'll remember who you are. You
Yeah.
signed up for the show.
Oh, yeah.
And if you lie, that's a disqualification. If that's
Well, it depends on how bad it is.
It depends on how bad it is. But in some shows, if you get a disqualification for trying to, pass off someone else's work as your own,
Oh, that's the that
which is
happens.
what happens usually when we're talking about people lying about their costumes. They'll have made part of it or something, but they'll claim they made all of it.
Or my favorite, someone trying to say that their mass-produced costume was made by their grandmother, and I'm like, yes, your grandmother works in a factory in China, I'm sure.
Or these Vampire Knight cosplayers when they claim they did all the embroidery by hand on,
All
on
machine
their patches,
embroidery by
which was
hand.
very obviously machine embroidery and satin stitching.
Oh man,
But those kind of people get not only get disqualified, they get banned from the show because we don't have. I mean, there's just no time for that.
no.
You took up a spot that someone else who completely made their costume
And didn't lie to us.
and
about.
didn't lie about. They didn't get to be in the show because you got that slot, and you lied to get it. So it's a really big deal. It's probably considered one of the biggest disgraces you can do in a cosplay competition.
Yeah, it's just please don't lie. Just be honest, and don't enter under false pretenses because that's really bad too.
If you didn't make all of your costume,
That's
usually
fine.
in the novice level, that's fine.
Yeah.
You won't be judged on what you didn't make.
Like, oh, I didn't make the pants, but I made the rest. It's like, okay, that's fine.
If you're
I'm not gonna look at the pants.
depending on the contest, because some contests don't allow this, I know San Japan does. If you're modeling someone else's work, mention that. Have the original person there with you
Yeah,
to
we-
explain what went into the costume.
We've done judging like that. I've done judging like that before, where someone they just wanted to make the costume for someone else, and they were there for the judging.
That is completely kosher. Just be upfront and honest
Mhm.
about it.
That's the most important thing you can do is just be honest. Just don't lie. Don't be the person who said that their mother's label was Huntington Bay. Oh.
And the nice big Huntington Bay label on the inside of her coat.
It's
too.
like, oh yeah, it's my mom's label. I'm like, okay, honey.
Your mom owns Huntington Bay?
Your mom.
What are you doing in San Antonio?
Your mom's a private label for JCPenney. Okay.
Anyways, so you want to do a walk-on. These are the bread and butter of cosplay contests, at least around these parts. Usually if you go out more to West Coast cons, they're more skit-oriented. And things used to be pretty heavily skit-oriented here in Texas too, but I feel like as cosplay competitions in Texas have become more craftsmanship-based, it's easier to do an entry emphasizing craftsmanship as a walk-on as opposed to a skit. Because then you have to do this whole massively detailed costume and plan out a 3-minute performance
And that's very difficult. We've done
compared
it.
to 30 seconds, which is a lot easier to do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to show a video example of this. Not being before
We're prepared.
though. Okay.
Which one?
This is an example of, I'm going to show you 2 examples of walk-ons, both from our group. One did not win an award, one did. And I'm going to see if you can tell why one won an award and one didn't, regardless of what the costumes is, because we're talking about performance here.
Master's entry number 1, Southern Cospitality Cosplay,
Yeah, my stage power broke, whatever. There was supposed to be a trail of flowers that came out of my sword, but it didn't happen. You actually kind of see it stuck there in my belt.
Always expect to remember that, so that's not
The important thing for that is to act like nothing happened.
And then I couldn't see my sword.
Oops.
Stop playing Andes. For a second, just for a second, VLC, I'm begging you. All right, and another one.
And now we have Southern Hospitality Cosplay as Lisa Kisai and Anjali Knowledge from Toho Project.
Despite the fact that she's our group member, we don't tell Whitney what we do on stage, just so we get reactions out of her like that. Now, okay, best guess, which of those two walk-ons do you think an award? If you know which one won an award, don't say anything, because that's cheating.
I saw the video, so I know.
Which one do you
One or
think?
two?
Anyone, shout out a guess.
One?
Two? Yeah, which one won?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Two.
it was
Two.
two.
The second one was
Yep.
the one that won an award. You want to know why? Because we actually told a story in the second one. The first one, as pretty as those costumes were, as good as their posing was, we were telling a story with that walk-on. That was planned
You're
very
also
much
kind of a mess.
last minute. We were very stressed out.
They were
We just
finished.
wanted to get those costumes done. We were mostly hoping for craftsmanship awards
Yeah.
for those. Whereas the more simple costumes in the second entry actually won a performance award because we managed to actually tell a complete story in 30 seconds.
And the Karam helped me learn how to moonwalk backstage in his armored boots. That was great.
So that helps put in perspective what judges are usually looking for in a good walk-on. So to plan your walk-on, you need to know in advance how much time you're allowed. 30 seconds is the most common, and let me tell you, 30 seconds can feel like a just infinite amount of time, despite how short it may seem at first. When you're on stage and you're doing nothing for 30 seconds,
It's
while
terrifying.
the audience's cheers are starting to taper off, you're just getting some of those please finish walking across the stage claps. I've been there. It sucks.
But that's why it's really awesome when they let you have your own music so you can learn what those 30 seconds feel like.
Because it used to be they had a stream of music playing for walk-ons and that was it. And that was really difficult, especially when
There are still some conventions that do that
Yeah.
too. IggyCon's kind of half and half. People who want to submit their own walk-on music can, but for the most part, everyone else gets runway music. And runway music,
doesn't work super
I mean,
well
I
for
understand it's
costumes.
mostly there for people who don't want to put as much planning into their walk-on, but trying to plan a walk-on to runway music sucks because you don't know where the beats are going to fall. And oftentimes you're planning your entire entry to the beat because, I mean, that's the whole reason runway music even exists. The difference between runway music at a fashion show and runway music at a cosplay contest is runway models get to practice moving to that beat. You don't get to practice moving to the runway beat at a cosplay contest. So you're basically at the mercy of whatever song is playing. It's not a good way to be. So if you can bring your own music, do. If you can't,
Good luck.
Good luck. Most common means of doing a walk-on is the 3-pose performance. That was what that first that first video was an example of. We did a 3-pose performance. You pose at stage left, at center, and at stage right. We didn't do that, but that's because there were 2 of us and we were already halfway between stage right and center and halfway between stage left and center. So we actually took up all the visible parts of the stage anyways. That when we were swinging swords around and didn't want to hit each other. So be considerate, like if you're in a group entry, be considerate of how you and your group members are interacting on stage if it's just going to be a 3-pose group.
Yeah.
More advanced walk-ons are actually short skits in themselves. That would be the second example. Telling a small story in their series of poses or through fluid dynamic actions. Poses that shift from one to another in a way that actually tells a small story. That can work. I've seen it work. I've seen it win awards. It's actually really cool to do. Not all contests judge walk-ons for performance, and you should ask in advance if you do, but you shouldn't phone it in even if that's the case. A costume will always look better in a good pose or in motion, and you should still entertain the audience if nothing else.
Because you're on stage. It's a stage show.
Because nothing makes you feel worse than getting out there and the audience gives you that initial pop, and then nothing. They just die out because you're not doing anything.
That's no fun.
It's no fun for them. It's awkward for everyone. It sucks the energy out of the room. You know, do something to get them excited, even if it's not necessarily in character. Do something goofy, something funny if you have to. Everyone loves comedy. Trust me. It may be difficult to pull off, but everyone loves it. Just, you know, do something unexpected for your character. Like, if people are going to come out there, they're going to expect Ed Elric to do the or, look, I had a hidden sword in my sleeve. Bet you've never seen that before.
I've seen some.
I'm sorry to be because that's actually really difficult to do.
Yeah,
But like I've seen like a dozen Ed Elric cosplays do
But that's
that.
okay.
And it's cool. It's cool. Don't get me wrong. But you know,
You can
if
still use
have
this time to highlight your costume
yeah.
to make yourself look good. Because even if your performance isn't judged, that can still make an impression on the judges.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
please don't be the person who's the blur that runs across stage.
And that usually happens with young cosplayers.
Yeah.
They get nervous and they're like, oh my god, there's people out there. I can hear them. I can feel their eyes on me. I need to get out of here. And they do.
And boy, they go fast.
And boy, they go fast. Thankfully, San Japan's stage is huge, so you can't really pull that off as well.
Yeah.
Sorry if that makes you nervous. But yeah, it happens, and you don't want to do that. And if you're in a particularly detailed costume, they look better in motion anyways. So fluid poses and dynamic poses are always going to look better than just standing there with a peace sign. You know, don't.
And if you have something to feature on the back, turn around.
If you can't think of any other way to pose, just do what feels right.
Yeah.
Even if you, like, because I've had people who didn't know what they were going to do with their walk-on because they kept changing their mind or couldn't figure anything out until the moment they get ready to go on stage, and they go well and they do well anyways, just because they move in a way that's natural to the character. And when they get on stage, they just pose in a way with their arms out so people can see what they're wearing,
Mhm.
and that still gets a reaction.
Yeah.
So.
Other way you can kind of help yourself out on this is to go and find footage of previous cosplay competitions and see what other people do.
Yes.
It is a great way to kind of just learn to mirror something you think would be
Especially-
effective for you.
Especially if you're doing a fairly popular character.
Yeah.
It's a resource of ideas.
Thanks, YouTube.
So you want to do a skit. You're not ready for primetime players. So you won't get that reference.
No.
It's a Saturday Night Live joke from the 70s. Alright, I got another video for you. I only have one video actually.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait, I have two. I have one from San Japan and I have one from WCS. Examples of skits. Both of these are award-winning, so you don't have to guess which one it is. I'm just going to give you two examples of really good skits. One is a San Japan 8 Puko cosplay, the Legend of Zelda Hyrule Warriors skit.
Kuko Cosplay, Princess Zelda and Impa, Hyrule Warriors.
everyone bested the show that year. Which isn't to say anything about that competition. They were absolutely the best in that show. Despite all the mistakes, despite the fact that they got a little unsure about their posing at some point, the fact that the timing was a little off on the modelings popping up and down, mistakes ultimately don't matter. How you carry yourself on stage during a skit does. That makes a way bigger difference both to the audience and to the judges. You never want to let anyone watching your skit in on what is gone wrong. It's the most valuable skill you can learn, because for as meticulously rehearsed as that was, because it was essentially a dance with weapons, the improvisational skills are just as valuable, because something probably will go wrong on stage. That's one of the oldest rules of theater.
When we did a skit at IkiCon this past year, both of our hip plates fell off from our armor and just kicked them out of the way and kept going.
Hip plates are the worst, apparently.
Yeah.
That just seems to be something that happens.
It just fell off. I'm like, nope, gotta
And
get out of the way.
also, the staging wasn't supposed to collapse on you either.
No, but it sure did.
It worked for the skit, though. We improvised around
And
it.
everyone laughed.
We actually scared the judges a
We
little
did.
bit. Anyways, here is a WCS 2015 Team USA skit.
I believe they won second place.
Is it second or third? Go away. There we go.
Yes.
From Paradise Kiss.
Yes.
We're Team USA. We've been working on our sewing, performance technique, and sacrificing muscles.
Yeah, if you never watched WCS, this is
Team
kind of
USA, go!
how it goes.
And they are from Texas.
It's alpaca fashion. Single. So those are some good examples of award-winning quality skits. I love them. God, PLC.
And you'll notice that both of those skits, there was no dialogue.
No dialogue.
Now, that's not to say that you can't have dialogue, but
I've
for
seen-
people that are nervous about recording or
Mhm.
trying to deal with the audio on that,
We don't have the needs to do recording.
These are great options. It's actually my preferred method, honestly.
Sometimes just a well choreographed silent skit that tells all the actions and poses and movement is amazing. In fact, most WCCS skits at the time were like that. Dialogues become more common because more and more people are learning Japanese to enter in the WCS.
Well, now
skit.
WCS is actually letting
And
you
now they're
use
actually
your
letting
language.
you use your native language. They'll just subtitle you. That's actually really cool.
Yeah.
But anyways, the whole point is you don't necessarily need dialogue to make a good skit. If you feel like your story is better enhanced by dialogue, do so. But if you feel like it doesn't, if that's actually not necessary, find a way to do it without it. Like, unless you feel it's absolutely integral to the story you want to tell, you don't need it. Most conventions will request a copy of your script, blocking, etc. before signing up. If you want to know what blocking is, and none of your theater kids, it's basically just a list of what your movement is and how you're going to be on the stage. It doesn't necessarily have to be blocked out on an actual blocking diagram, because
You can
with
just
the
write it
exception
as a
of
list.
Emma would know what a blocking
Yeah.
diagram is. But a lot of cosplay coordinators actually didn't get their start in theater
Yeah.
and will not know what to do with the blocking diagram. So just write out what you're doing
Yeah.
and it'll be fine. And
The whole
also
point
just
is just to see that your skit is
follow
thought
the
out
rules.
and following the rules.
Yeah, like if your skit isn't thought, you should at least have a write-up of some kind of your content.
Yeah.
Just something.
Just
Just like
like for a wordless skit we did at IkiCon.
Yeah.
Because we were just doing a little skit to Obla Di Obla Da by the Beatles.
which is why we couldn't find it on YouTube to show to you guys. Because it got content ID.
Whoops. Anyway,
That's something to think about when picking your music, by the way.
if you ever want to see it again.
Just like with walk-ons, time allowances for skit varies pretty widely. In general, a safe time to aim for is 2 minutes, because 2 minutes can be very long. In Texas, we're a little bit spoiled by 3 to 5 minute skit allowances.
Please
I'll be
don't
honest with you,
time.
most audiences don't have the attention span for a 3 to 5 minute skit. 2 minutes is perfect.
Mhm.
That skit we just watched was about 2.5 minutes. The Legend of Zelda skit was 3 minutes, but you know, they had a lot going on. If you don't have a whole lot going on in your skit, don't stretch it out to the full time.
And if you're starting out, shorter a lot of times is better.
Yes.
Even if your skit only has enough content to take up 45 seconds,
Do
do
it.
that. Because we would rather see a good 45-second skit than a long-feeling 3-minute skit. I promise you, the audience will agree. Have you ever gone to a cosplay show? Have you ever sat through a skit you weren't engaged in? That 3 minutes
Oh,
starts to
boy.
feel like a long time, doesn't it?
Oh boy, does it ever.
Yeah, so
Oh,
never feel pressure to take up your full time. Take up the time you need. 2 minutes is usually the golden ratio.
Yeah.
Anything in 2 minutes can be done in a pretty snappy, good way.
Very much.
Yeah, just even dramatic skits will need a steady beat to follow if you can get there within an amount of time. And not everything has to be snappy comedy or, costume changes on stage. It's always better to do that kind of thing. Always gauge your material against honest critics. Be prepared to rewrite even from scratch if something isn't working. Screen your skits for your friends, even if you're embarrassed by them. Test them out in front of a smaller audience, and in front of your parents if you have to. I mean, your parents aren't usually going to be honest critics of your work. Let's be real. They'll either think you're wasting your time, or they think their baby is precious. Neither of which is an honest criticism.
I got the combination.
Yeah.
But essentially just rehearse, and make sure people outside of your group get to see it before you bring it to stage.
Yeah.
Be prepared to rewrite it. Be prepared to re-choreograph it. Skits are pretty involved, which is why you usually don't see high craftsmanship level work in skits, just because that's a lot of work on top of a lot of work.
Mhm.
San Japan has been a little different in the last couple of years. You've been seeing a lot more high quality craftsmanship costumes in the skit division. A lot is because World Cosplay Summit, which is absolutely a combination of high quality skit and high quality craftsmanship.
Or people who participate in conventions on the coast where more skit based is more the
Absolutely.
the
If you
standard,
go
like
to
Fanime.
Fanime or AX, they're very skit based, but they also have a higher expectation of craftsmanship in their skits. So they're more used to that kind of thing just because it's a better part of their con culture. But around these parts, it tends to be a little more like you'll see the easier costumes in the skit division versus the walk-on division.
Mhm.
And that's fine. That's just part of how things are.
Yep.
But if you are going to do that, be be aware it's going to take up twice as much of your time.
Yep.
And twice as much work. It'll be worth it, I promise you. Knowing you did your absolute best on both your costumes and your skit, even if you don't win an award,
It
it's
feels
an
good.
amazing feeling. Because we didn't win an award for the IkiCon skit where the set crashed down on top of Alice and our hit plates broke.
But it was so fun.
But it was so fun
great
to do
story.
it.
Yeah, we told it was a great story, and I got to destroy the prop on stage.
Yay. Anyway,
The sound of cosplay. Because audio is a huge part of your presentation. It's pretty much, I would say good audio is 2/3 of a good cosplay presentation, whether it's a walk-on or a
You don't want to be the skit that sounds like they're underwater.
Yeah, so if you
The
have
skit
dialogue in your
is
skin, you
like-
don't want to sound like you're underwater, because then it doesn't matter what you're doing, because no one's going to hear it.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a walk-on that has your audio glitch up, and then you have to, be on there in silence. You don't want to have music that doesn't match your entry at all, because that's awkward. Sound makes a huge difference in your presentation.
make it work for you.
And this is mostly where I talk, because I am actually a audio engineer professionally. That's what I do for a living, which also means I get to cheat a little and use professional tools for our audio. But most people don't have access to that, because professional DAWs, digital audio workstations, are very, very expensive. A copy of Pro Tools will run you about $2,000. You don't need it if you're just using it for cosplay, I promise you. Pro Tools is something you get if you actually want to work with audio for a living.
Audacity is an okay program to use. It's very easy to use. It's what I used to use before he got into this.
Reactor is good. I haven't played around with GarageBand, but I hear good things about it. GarageBand is the default DAW that comes with most Macintosh computers. They're all good, and if you want to do this, you absolutely need one. Because if nothing else, you need something to trim music with, and they can all do that and do so well. Podcast mics are good for most dialogue recording. The Blue Buffalo, if you've heard of that, it's a USB-based podcast mic. It has excellent sound quality. It's tried and true. It's cheap. Don't anyone let anyone ever tell you you're just using a toy. You're using a mic like that. You're a hobbyist, all right? You're allowed to use
You
a
don't need
toy.
anything super fancy, but you also don't want something like dirt cheap because it's not going to sound good.
Because let me tell you, even these cheap Chinese Shure SM58 knockoffs usually run about $70 to $80. An actual Shure microphone that you can pick up at your local guitar center will run you over $100. And they're also, XLR cable based, which means you would need to buy an interface to get it onto your computer. Interfaces run in the thousands of dollars. So you're getting an idea of how expensive it is
Yeah.
to be in audio.
We don't have to complicate it.
Yeah.
You don't have to
exactly.
complicate this. A podcast mic and a free DAW is all you're going to need.
And a quiet place to record.
I will say, do not use headset or gamer mics. They have terrible audio quality. If you've ever tried to hear what your teammates are saying in Overwatch and can't understand a word of it, well, that's why. That is a huge part of why.
Or someone plugged their microphone into the headphone jack.
And if you have multiple people in your skit, you want them to all record on the same mic if you absolutely can. If you can't, at least make sure they're similar. If you're really getting into a problem where everyone else sounds clear and someone else sounds like they're buried in a pit in mud, at that point you may want to reconsider having dialogue in your skit, because it's going to be very, very noticeable to the audience and to the judges which of you had the crappy mic.
There was actually a group in the mid-2000s by the name of Nostalgia Cosplay. They had members all over the US. They found out what mics they bought, and then had everyone else buy the same mic, so that people recording literally across the country sounded the same in their recording. We couldn't tell they were recorded in different areas. It was really good audio, a really good audio idea. So you don't have to be in the same place to record your dialogue. You just have to have the same equipment.
Some effects to keep in mind, and all digital audio workstations can do this, even Audacity. Audacity doesn't make it easy for you, but it can do it. Compression, reverb, and stereo delay, and I'll explain all of them because I'm a nerd. Compression is a dynamic effect, which means it affects your volume. It means even if you go, I understand. This is the last part. Don't push me. Anyways, compression is a dynamic control essentially. It allows your loudest parts and your quietest parts to even out in terms of volume. This is super important for dialogue because the volume of the human voice fluctuates pretty widely. So if you have lines that are spoken softly, whisper. And lines that are shouted at the top of your lungs. You want them to have a sort of even volume. You want the tone of voice to carry the meaning, not the volume.
You don't want
Because you don't want everyone leaning in
and then get deafened.
and then you get deafened. Like,
you don't want to be the THX noise.
that's what compression is for. It helps with that tremendously. Reverb is real easy to explain. You know how there's an echo in this room? Okay, that's reverb. It actually helps clarify spoken word audio in an open space like this. It makes it easier to understand what's going on because you can actually hear my consonant ends on the echo. If I didn't have that, I would actually be quite a bit harder to understand, say if I was standing in a soundproof room and just speaking normally. And stereo delay is the hardest one to figure out. It's a pretty advanced technique. If you ever want to know more about it, feel free to message the Southern Cospitality Facebook group. I will walk you through it. But stereo delay, basically, because the voice is considered a mono-channel sound, you only have one hole your sound comes out. You can't pan it without losing one channel or the other. A stereo delay is where you duplicate the voice into two separate tracks, put them milliseconds apart, and then pan either to left and right. And this expands the sound to fill the room so you can be better understood. For speaking in a PA environment like that, that is absolutely 100% necessary. And like when you'll see me on stage speaking into her mic, the audio engineer and the Leela Cockle Center is already putting her voice on the stereo delay, just so it can fill the room better. And it's impossible to notice, but you'll really notice when it's not there. Mono sound does not work well in a PA environment. Keep this in mind for your walk-ons as well. Make sure they are stereo audio clip. And also with walk-on audio, this is an important part to remember. Even if you're only allowed 30 seconds on stage, make sure your audio clip is anywhere from 45 seconds to a minute.
A minute's a safe bet.
Preferably with a fade out on the end. So you don't come on and then you lose track of time and suddenly your audio cuts out. Because that's awkward and nobody wants to be there on stage when the audio cuts out.
It's no fun.
And repeating once again, you want it in a common audio format. You want it in an MP3 file or a WAV file. Really, don't send them a YouTube rip.
Actually, San Japan does not allow YouTube rips.
San Japan no longer allows them. Most conventions don't appreciate them because the sound quality is terrible. They have dynamics issues, so YouTube clips will sound very, very quiet compared to actual MP3s. So don't do that. Make sure it's an actual file you can edit and change in some way. This is better in the end. Backstage, this is just a quick bit on that. We talked about having a positive attitude earlier. The way you conduct yourself and treat your fellow contestants leaves a lasting impression backstage. It's actually super important to just be cordial, courteous, friendly. Even if you're in a really nervous mood, sometimes just something as simple as just being by yourself for a bit can help with that. You don't necessarily need to talk to people. If someone does come up and talk to you, don't tell them
Don't tell them to F off.
Don't tell them that, yeah. Stay hydrated, make sure water is provided. Usually Cosplay staff will do this, and if they are not able to do that, have someone nearby that can fetch it for you.
Bless that Germany backstage a couple of years ago, who he was someone's handler, and he just got one of the waiters' trays full of water for people backstage who needed it.
If something malfunctions backstage, don't panic. You're in a room full of cosplayers. Someone might have a solution for you. Don't breathe for anything to talk to anyone. We're all nervous and use a distraction. Making cosplay cards, you've probably seen them throughout the weekend, is not a bad idea to help keep in touch with any backstage buddies you need. Because we're all going to want to talk to each other later as well. And your cosplay card will just be a simple business card with your contact information on it. You also want those to hand to photographers and halls and everything anyways. This is a good idea to have. Because I've heard someone say that, oh, that's so arrogant, you're not important enough to have a business card. It's like, well, it's for contact purposes.
Yeah,
shut up.
You like my work, you want to keep looking at my work, I got more work.
And so you won an award. In the case you won an award, congrats. In the event you won an award, be prepared to get on stage as quickly as possible and stick around for a bit. A lot of shows will usually allow winners to pose with their awards for photos. You absolutely want to be available. Don't leave. Don't think you're not going to win an award and just ditch. Don't, give an Irish goodbye. Be around for the award ceremony. Even if you don't win an award, the people who do win an award really appreciate having a contest that's there to applaud them, because usually the audience is gone by that point, because the audience doesn't care. Be sure to keep a list of what awards you win and where you won them and what costume won that award. This becomes important when you make a habit of competing at multiple conventions. because, like we said earlier, sandbagging can be a thing where people will win an award at a major convention and then they'll take that same costume or that same performance to a smaller convention, hoping they can sink the award more easily. That is a no-no. That is
Or a
considered
higher level award.
very, very, very
That's
crappy
very
thing to
common.
do. A good attitude goes a long way whether you win or not. Always applaud winners, congratulate your fellow winners, thank the judges, thank the cosplay staff, and probably the most important thing is it's okay to cry.
If you make us not waterproof, be careful.
That's what sealant is for.
Yes.
I mean, even if it is, people understand.
Yes.
Like, we get it. We've been there. Solidarity.
When we at Fanime 2013, we won an award, and he like burst into tears when she got on stage, and one of somebody like a contestant was like, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" And she's like, "This is my first contest. This is my first award," and like, everyone just like hugged her immediately.
Anyways,
And don't be me over here. I was tired and sleep deprived.
he
and-
went, got the award, and immediately walked off.
Yes, that was my pose on stage. He's following me with my cape.
Chasing you down, trying to tell you that you need to stop on stage and pose like everyone else has been
I
doing
was
before
so
you.
hungry and tired.
So that's another important thing.
Yes.
Make sure you eat.
Yes, please eat. Even if it's just like a Cliff Bar or something, eat.
But anyways,
We have about, we have 3 minutes. We can
we have 3 minutes for some questions. Anybody have any? Yes, sir.
Alright, like I went through the contest tonight for the novice, and like I made this poster, and it's already falling apart. I don't know what to do.
You got tape?
Yeah,
Tape it up.
If you think you can save it,
Yep.
and you know,
Like
you
if
feel
your
like
walk-on is dependent on that poster being there so people get whatever it is you're trying to do, tape it up. It doesn't have to look pretty, it just has to be visible. Because you're not being judged on that poster.
Yeah, we got, we actually helped someone at IkiCon. We saved their prop because it was a little flimsy, and I had gaff tape. She got across stage with a gaff tape prop, and it was good.
She made it, it worked.
So yeah, just do whatever you can to save it if you can.
If you can't save it in the hotel room, maybe someone in the line will have tape. But yeah, just make sure, you know, if it's that important to your walk-on, try to save it.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
Nope, okay.
All right. We are Southern Cospitality. You can reach us on Facebook and Twitter at SoCosTX. We are also on Ko-fi.com if you wish to financially support our endeavors to keep doing these panels for you guys.
And that's no
You absolutely
obligation.
no means have to, but we do appreciate your patronage. It's not a Patreon account, so you're not going to get any rewards for it, but we appreciate it nonetheless. Give us a like on Facebook, give us a follow on Twitter. We're more active on Twitter than on Facebook because Facebook's stupid. But yeah, all right, we'll see you guys around. I hope you guys enjoy your con, and I hope you guys enjoy this cosplay
And we'll hope we
contest.
see some of you in the contest.
We don't kid around when we say San Japan probably has the best cosplay contest in Texas right now, so you're really going to love it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.